Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so how many times have we tried to just completely overhaul our lives? You set these massive, incredibly ambitious goals, only to find yourself totally burned out and basically back to square one just a few weeks later. It happens to the best of us. We often fail at these massive overnight overhauls. But today, we're going to explore a completely different approach. We're going to see why true, lasting success actually comes from tiny 1% daily changes.
To break this all down, we're going to walk through 6 key steps today. We've got 1. The power of 1%. 2. Systems instead of goals. 3. Identity over outcomes. 4. The 4-step habit loop. 5. The 2-minute rule. And finally, 6. Tracking small daily wins.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the power of 1%.
So let's kick things off by figuring out what an atomic habit actually is. By definition, it's an extremely small amount of a thing, just a tiny, regular practice. But honestly, do not let the size fool you. It is the fundamental, irreducible building block of a much larger system. Think about it like this. Just as atoms build molecules, these tiny habits build remarkable results. They're small, yeah, but they are literally the source of immense power.
To put that into perspective, consider the story of Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team. For years, they just struggled. But then Brailsford comes in and introduces this strategy of marginal gains. He looked for just a 1% improvement in every tiny aspect of cycling. We're talking everything from the ergonomics of the bike seats to the literal pillows the riders slept on at night. Mathematically, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. If you get just 1% better every day for a single year, those tiny gains compound. And no joke, you end up 37 times better by the end of that year.
Moving right along to part 2, systems instead of goals. That compounding effect naturally challenges the conventional wisdom we've all been taught, right? We're always told that setting massive, ambitious goals is the key to finally getting in shape, writing that book, or building a business. But let's rethink that for a second. Goals are really just about the results you want to achieve, while systems are about the processes that lead to those results. So if you're a coach, your goal is to win a championship, obviously. But your system? Your system is how you conduct practice every single day. Goals are great for setting your direction, but systems are absolutely superior for making actual progress. This crucial point is perfectly summarized by this idea. In any competition, the winners and the losers often have the exact same goals. Every Olympian wants the gold medal. Since the goal is the same, the goal cannot be the thing that separates them. It's their daily systems that ultimately dictate who gets to stand on the podium. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Which brings us to part 3, identity over outcomes. Now that we understand why systems matter so much, we need to look at the deepest psychological layer of behavior change. Most people tackle change from the outside in, right? They focus purely on the outcome. But true, lasting change happens from the inside out. It isn't about the outcome of just reading a book. It's about shifting your core identity at the center to becoming a reader. When your behavior and your identity are aligned, you're not forcing the change anymore. You're just acting like the person you already believe you are. But how do you actually change that deep-seated belief? Well, you do it through a really powerful metaphor. Your daily actions serve as votes. Every time you execute a good habit, you are casting a vote, providing proof for your new identity. Now, no single instance is going to transform your beliefs overnight, but as the votes build up, the evidence of your new identity becomes undeniable. And that's when making the right choices eventually starts to feel completely effortless. Okay, on to part 4, the 4-step habit loop.
Let's get into the actual mechanics. Whenever you face a recurring problem, your brain creates an automatic solution using this exact 4-step loop. First, the cue triggers your brain to initiate the behavior. Second, the craving provides the motivational force. And remember, you aren't craving the habit itself, you're craving the change in state it brings. Third is the response, which is the actual action you perform. And finally, the reward, which satisfies the craving and teaches your brain to remember this entire loop for next time.
The beauty of understanding this loop is that it means we can hack it. If you want to tackle bad habits, you have to fix the very first step, the cue. Stop relying on willpower alone. Honestly, it's a terrible short-term strategy. Instead, invert the loop by making the cues completely invisible and adding some serious friction to your environment. Watch too much TV? Unplug it after every single use. Distracted by your phone? Put it in a completely different room while you work. Out of sight, out of mind. Conversely, to build a good habit, you need to make the cue incredibly obvious.
This brings us to a highly practical framework called an implementation intention. Basically, don't just wait around for motivation to strike. Use this exact formula. I will perform a specific behavior at a specific time in a specific location. For example, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in the kitchen. This locks in the cue so your brain knows exactly when and where to fire up that loop. Next up, Part 5, the 2-minute rule. Look, even with the perfect cue, starting a new routine can feel super daunting. To push through that initial plateau of latent potential, where most people easily give up, we use the 2-minute rule. When you start a new habit, it should literally take less than 2 minutes to do. A hard goal like reading before bed becomes the gateway habit of reading just 1 page. 30 minutes of yoga, that just becomes take out my yoga mat. By standardizing this gateway habit, you master the art of simply showing up before you even try to optimize the actual routine.
Here's a quick list of hyper-scalable, beginner-friendly habits you can use to start applying the 2-minute rule today. Notice how none of these feel like a challenge at all. You want the entry point to be completely frictionless. Once you've tied your running shoes, you're much more likely to actually step out the door. The initial action is mindless, and frankly, it feels a little silly to tie your shoes and not go for a run, right? So the rest naturally follows.
And finally, Part 6, tracking small daily wins.
Here's a golden rule. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. Because the long-term benefits of things like exercise or reading take months to show up, we need immediate gratification right now. Here are some super simple analog ways to track your first week of progress. You can use a wall calendar and draw a big, satisfying X over each successful day, or move a paperclip from one jar to another every time you make a sales call. This visual proof of progress is highly satisfying to your brain and aggressively feeds your motivation. Now, of course, perfection is impossible. Emergencies happen, life gets in the way, and you will eventually break your streak. But here is the cardinal rule. Never miss twice. If you miss one day of your habit, you must treat getting back on track the very next day as your absolute top priority. Missing once? That's just an accident. But missing twice? That's the start of a new bad habit that threatens your hard-earned identity. Let's wrap all these mechanics up with a clear 3-step checklist that you can execute the very second this explainer is over. First, scale down your ambition and pick a 2-minute gateway habit. Second, write out your implementation intention so you have a very specific time and location cue. And third, set up a simple visual tracker so you get that immediate hit of satisfaction when you succeed. Remember, this entire system is designed to stop you from chasing fleeting results and instead focus your energy on the process. So I'll leave you with this provocative challenge. Forget the massive goals for a moment. What is the one tiny 2-minute daily vote you are going to cast today to prove to yourself the new identity you want to become? Get out there and cast that vote. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.